Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us this afternoon. We're going to give you just a few minutes to get everyone into the session. My name is Lisa Bailey, and I'm a communications consultant with the Office of the Subregional Program Coordination for the Caribbean, PAHO office. And today we're going to be talking about doing what matters in times of stress for journalists and health communicators. We are so glad that you were able to join us today. We know that especially communicators and journalists, you don't have a lot of time to spend. And I know a lot of people who wanted to be a part of this session may not be able to join us. So trust me, if you have registered, we will make sure that we send you the recording. So thank you for joining us. We're really happy that you could be with us. And we do have a really good agenda planned for you today. Before we get into the presentation with Matthias Hoogstad, he's a mental health international consultant with the Pan American Health Organization. And right now he is based in the Netherlands. You'll talk to him a bit later. We're going to hear first from our partners at the Caribbean Development Bank, and they are represented today by Kimberly Gittins, Operations Officer, Social Analyst in the Social Sector Division at the Caribbean Development Bank. She's been with us on this journey through these sessions, and we're really happy that she could be with us for this final session, not final, but final session in this series of trainings. So I want to welcome Kimberly. Please, thank you so much for being with us, Kimberly, and over to you for your remarks. You just have to unmute now.
Thank you so much, Lisa. You are correct. There's still much more to be done. And so I'm happy on behalf of CDB to continue this journey with PAHO and our other colleagues who are doing this very important work. Dr. Elisa Prieto, Advisor, Non-Communicable Diseases and Mental Health with PAHO's SBC, panelists, media representatives, health communicators, journalism students, and colleagues. Good afternoon, Happy New Year. It is not the start of the year that most of us were looking forward to, but it is the start with which we must work. We know that it certainly hasn't been business as usual for those of you who have joined us. As Lisa said, there are many demands on your time, and so we're really grateful that you've been able to join us for this webinar on responsible reporting on COVID-19 for journalists and health communicators in the region. Data available via Johns Hopkins University's COVID-19 dashboard shows that there are some 70,000 confirmed cases in the bank's 19 board member countries. This represents a significant rise since our last webinar. We know it's the same across the wider region and globally. And there have been many discussions about and diverse experiences in this pandemic. Some are related to physical health, the economic impacts, disruption in the education sector, and increasingly the effects on mental health and emotional well-being. The global pandemic is unprecedented. That's been said multiple times, and we are all too well aware of the associated infodemic and the potential impacts on mental health and well-being. Your role in providing quality and timely information cannot be overstated. And of course, you have a responsibility to care for yourself, for your own physical and mental health. Our panelists today will share from their technical expertise on stress management, communications in the pandemic, and more. Whether for you joining us, the information is new or it's a refresher, we really do hope that you're able to apply it at the personal and professional levels. The webinar is part of a larger CDB PAHO project, which is designed to build individual and social resilience to cope with the impacts of various shocks. We began the work after the impacts of Hurricanes Irma and Maria, and we have expanded the project to address the impacts of COVID-19. It's a 3-year project. We've done quite a bit of work to strengthen in-country competencies, to undertake work in a number of areas, including conducting mental health needs assessments, developing relevant action plans, and also we've been delivering regional anti-stigma and anti-discrimination Stronger Together campaign, amongst a number of other activities. Some of our colleagues today will share more details on this important and to date highly impactful project. We look forward to your active engagement in this session and to your continued support to the wider project. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Ms. Gittins. Thank you for being a part of the session and being a part of this journey. There's so much we've done and we feel like there's so much more left for us to do. Now, when I started to share that we were doing this session, I immediately got because I know a lot of communicators from the region, I immediately got a tongue lashing from one of them who said, why does it have to be health communicators? So all communicators have been welcomed here now. I actually changed it in the post because COVID-19 is not a health problem. It is a problem and it has impacted all of us. So I think it was important to make sure we open up to all communicators, students. I've already seen a couple of people from civil society organizations as well. Hello to the Bahamas. They are online thank you for joining us. So let's move now to Dr. Prieto, somebody who is very passionate about this work. She cracks the whip, makes sure that we are all in place and working on this project, which is very dear to her heart. Dr. Prieto, over to you.
Thank you. I don't know about the whip, cracking the whip, but certainly I'm very passionate about this work. I am the NCDM Mental Health Advisor at Lisa's team, the Sub-Regional Coordination Office of PAHO for the Caribbean, based in Barbados, and some of you may know me from the previous session. So I think Cam did a wonderful job at setting the scene in terms of where we are, the level of stress that we have been going through for over a year, how 2021 has really been a difficult start for certainly those of us based in Barbados, right? With closure of schools again, and I know this is true for many other countries. So we really wanted to use this final engagement as part of the training series that we have been organizing with CDB and CBU to focus on self-care and really take an hour for ourselves, take an hour to talk about how journalists and communicators broadly, you guys are really frontline workers and have been bearing a lot of stress, and this has definitely been one of the requests that has come up throughout the various sessions that we have held to date, and we really felt that we wanted to wrap up with a focus on self-care and on stress management. So what we have planned for you today is a very, very practical session. Apologies. A very practical session where we are going to be working with Matthias Hogstad, a PAHO international consultant who is a clinical psychologist, and Lisa Bailey to walk through some of the tips that we would like to share with you today. These are ideas, these are some resources that you can maybe think of putting into practice, as Kim and Lisa were saying before, sharing with colleagues, sharing with family, and we really hope that we can make it a very practical and productive session. So without further ado, I'll hand over to Lisa, and I think we are ready to get started.
Great. Thank you so much, Dr. Prieto. Yes, we are all working in unusual circumstances. So let's hope that my children don't bounce into the room as well. So far, we're doing pretty good. So as she said, Matthias Hogstad is here with us. Matthias, you can turn on your video. He is in the Netherlands. It is after 8 now, just after 8 there.
Yeah, it's 7:10. So my kids are actually going to bed right now. So you might hear them in the background. I apologize.
Just after 7 there. So, but this is how we've been working recently. We're working from home, a lot of us, and we're just actually working harder, I think. We'll hear from the journalists as well if they feel as though they too are working harder right now. But I'm going to really turn it over to you, Matthias, because this is something that came up when we started our sessions with journalists. And we did ask them, how are you coping? Our first session was specifically on COVID-19, and it did come up that they are frontline workers, they are FAIRs, they are stressors, and this has gone on now. This is over a year, right? So we thought it was important to just take an hour. I'm not going to talk a lot. Let's get into this session. You start by maybe telling us a bit about yourself, so you can share your screen, and let's take it from there.
Sure. So at least you see me now, but then I'll be in the background when I share my screen for a presentation. Thank you for introducing me, and I'm really, really excited to be part of this actually wonderful training that has been taking place, and especially on this topic, on the urgence of and the focus on self-care for actually everyone in these times. And it's not just a health problem, it's a mental health problem, a psychosocial problem, this pandemic globally. I'm a clinical psychologist working in the Netherlands and working for some international projects, and I'm really happy that I'm consulting for the Caribbean team at PAHO. I've been working quite a bit on stress management, actually with Antares Foundation, who is well known and one of the leading agencies in this field, especially for humanitarian aid organizations. So, and they have quite a holistic approach. It's not just an individual problem. It's not just only about you, how you should deal with things, but more of a holistic, systemic issue. And I would like to discuss this with you, talk you through a bit of the concepts, background. We'll try to make it interactive. I don't know if it's possible with many people attending, but let's try. Lisa will give me some feedback or interrupt if the flow or the time pace is too quick or too slow. And in the end, we will have some time for some questions. So please, if you have some questions, take a note, and I hope we can address them at the end. Looking at the agenda, we have just some topics we discussed that might be relevant. Of course, what are we talking about stress and why is it so important? What are some causes in life, but also especially within your kind of work? Frontline workers has already been mentioned. We'll get into that a bit more in detail. And I want to show you some tools. And one of the tools that has been developed is the Doing What Matters in Times of Stress. It's a really, really nice visual guide for everyone, actually, not just for you attending, but everyone can use it. And it has some nice practical skills on coping with stress and some causes. So I'll introduce you a bit, maybe we practice a bit, and then we'll have the guide introduced. We'll tackle, of course, wellness, what are important elements, how we deal with the issues that we're facing. And throughout, I hope we can touch on some exercises and some practical tips. And in the end, there's some time, hopefully, if time allows, to have some questions for you guys. So actually, before we start, I would like to ask you, what are your values in doing this work? Why did you choose this line of work? And I hope Lisa can assist here a bit. Maybe you can, hopefully you see a poll right now in your screen, and you can click on some values that are important to you in your work. You can click multiple. Normally in a training, I would ask one by one, but of course in this setting, we do it a bit like this, and we get a bit of an impression, what are the values in your work that are really important to you? And we'll get back to that a little bit later on in this session. I think I can answer it myself as well. I will do that.
I should answer as well, but I won't.
Yeah, okay. I hope it's technically working for everyone.
Yes, I can see that voting. The votes are coming in.
Oh, that's great.
Can you guys see the poll as yet? As in what, the numbers on what are coming up? Yeah. That's
great. The thing with sometimes when we're hooked, and I will use this term a bit later on as well, but if we get hooked, if we get overwhelmed with stress and the chaos of life, we might lose a bit the values when we start doing this. And these values are such a source of resilience, of strength, of being connected and being motivated. And it might be nice to make it awake and to keep it afresh, like to keep it on top of our mind. Why are we doing this kind of work, especially in these times? And maybe within these times, you really, really feel this urgency, and you really are aware of your values, and that's really wonderful. And at some moments, this might be a bit blurred. And our values is what keeps us human, what keeps us wonderful in our relationships, how we relate to our work, how we relate to our colleagues. So that's why we're focusing a bit on this right now.
It's interesting that most people, and I'm not surprised by this, are in it because they want to help people. It's their passion. They want to make a difference. And I think the only next thing that was higher was, you know, loving to tell stories and excitement, wanting some excitement. So that's interesting.
Yeah.
That's kind of people
So-
have already used it. So if you're ready to move on, we can move on from there.
Yeah, and in stressful times or in hectic times, we get often enough of excitement, and that's a really important one as well. But if it's more about the goal of why you want to do it, this is nice, so people can see it. Advocacy, great. Passion, seeking justice, nice. Really, really wonderful. So let me get back to that. So why is this topic important? Well, obviously, I don't have to stress this too much because you all are aware of this, and it's already been mentioned. You're frontline workers, and it has different levels to it, and these times are challenging and uncertain, and they're unprecedented in a way, and it can be for journalists, for you, how to make sense of how the coronavirus outbreak is affecting your own day-to-day life, but also the lives of community members that you're covering and the topics that you're addressing. And yeah, if you want to be able to continue to serve your community, your neighbors, your people, we as professionals need to take care of ourselves as well. Otherwise, we'll get into burnout issues, or we burn up, and or it affects our health. And recently, it was really, really well shown, also with the violence in the capital, at the Capitol in the United States, obviously, when journalists were attacked. So it can also be a direct, well, let's say, victim or target. And I want to show you just a brief introduction. Will just be a minute, but it gets you a bit an introduction in the guide. Sorry, the Doing What Matters in Times of Stress guide from PAHO and the WHO. Let me see where I'm looking for my mouse. There it is.
Doing what matters in times of stress. Stress can affect anyone at any time, and COVID-19 has made life more stressful for all of us. But whether you're worried about health,
Sorry, Matthias, can you start it over? I muted you because I could hear your paper. So start it over and you have to unmute again. You're muted, so you have to unmute yourself. And then unmute. You have to unmute yourself.
manage situations like these. Let's look at one of them here.
So this is just a short. It was okay, technically, Lisa. Okay.
Well, if I was asking you if you could start it over because I muted you, but I forgot if I muted you, I mute everyone's the sound. So could you play it first again? Because I think I may have distracted people a bit, and it's not long. So if you could start it again.
Doing what matters in times of stress. Stress can affect anyone at any time, and COVID-19 has made life more stressful for all of us. But whether you're worried about health, money, family, work, or something else, WHO's illustrated guide can help you to support your mental health. A little bit of stress isn't a problem. Everyone experiences it from time to time, but very high levels of stress often lead to unpleasant feelings in your body, like increased heart rate, headaches, and stomach aches. Stress can also create unpleasant reactions like worry. One moment you might be enjoying a meal, and the next you're overwhelmed by anger. These symptoms of stress don't just affect you, they can also affect your loved ones. The downloadable WHO guide teaches you 5 easy strategies to help manage situations like these. Let's look at.
Hopefully that was better for everyone. It's just an introduction. Of course, you recognize this on the consequences or the signs of stress, and this we can elaborate on it a lot more. For now, I think it would be sufficient to leave it like this. When we talk about stress, this is just a graph I want to show you because it's not just a bad thing, right? We need a bit of stress to increase our performance, and this is all the excitement. If we're in an adrenaline setting, if the adrenaline gets us going, so it also makes us perform, focused and motivated. But of course there is it's a balance, you know. If you get into the orange, let's say, if the stress level is too high and reduces your performance, then you get into, let's say, the stress overload on the right hand side of the graph. And of course you want to stay in the green, maybe a little bit of orange, but the dark red we want to avoid where possible. Sorry, too quick. This one. So what I just mentioned is, of course, when we talk about causes of stress, we have to think of all different elements in life and not just what kind of person you are or the setup of your characteristics, your talents or your temperament or your coping skills, but it's really related to also structural things. The chances of getting a job, or the way you are paid, the way your supervisor is dealing with you, but also within society or community. And that can be violence, that can be inequality, exclusion, discrimination, racism, all these kinds of violent, and like, of course, more severe, like conflict. So all these three levels are interacting in a way. And stress can be caused by, let's say, major threats, but also smaller ones. So these are internal and external. I think we have another poll on this one. I like that it worked on the previous one, so we can maybe check again. We would like to ask you, what are your causes of stress within your work setting? So within your work environment, what are the things that are maybe specific to your work as a journalist or as a communicator, reporter in this line of work? What are maybe typical for you guys?
I laugh because tight deadlines is like immediate.
Some are the easy ones, right? These are clear. Yeah, of course. And this also gets us to perform, right? So that could be in the green zone, but it could also, if there's multiple stressors affecting us, we could get into the red, and then it becomes harder to perform and reach the tight deadlines. So often one or a few factors are okay, but when it's accumulated, when it builds up, then it becomes it could be too much to handle. Oh, I have to do it myself again. I forgot. My workloads.
I think most of us in the communications world, we say we're accustomed to tight deadlines, and we actually start to feel uncomfortable if we don't have a deadline. I tend to ask for deadlines if they don't give me one, and then I stress myself out. So I don't know if that's something that happens to other people. And then in some of the sessions, we did have a couple people, especially in the session with violence, when we addressed violence, domestic violence, where people talked about the heaviness of some of the topics that they have to carry, and
exactly.
not feeling like they have a time to not think about these heavy topics. And some of us cover those topics more than others.
Exactly.
That's something we can discuss, you know.
Yes, especially when it's as a frontline work, and the same within the field that I've been working as a psychologist, when it talk about trauma or domestic violence, these are also topics that touch you as a human, right? These are on such important things about safety, about your trust in other people. And when you're a witness, it can be a bystander effect. Like you can see, you experience, but you feel maybe insufficient to work on it, or you do because you're giving a voice to the people and telling the story and advocating for their maybe dire situation. So yeah, definitely those elements are crucial in your line of work, I would say.
I'm going to end the polling now. A couple people are still coming
Sure.
in, so we can see what was the most stressful thing for us in this area.
People recognize, yeah.
72% people have already voted, so I'm going to close it off now because our time is really tight and we don't want to keep people too long because I know deadlines approach at the evening time. So here we go, sharing the results.
High deadlines, yeah, of course. High workloads, lack of control, not so much. Okay. No recognition, lack of feedback. Unsupportive health, unhealthy work. And that's an interesting one, right? Because that's the environment where we sit in, where we function, where we work in. And the thing about what you say about the deadlines, it's also a culture, right? You have your work culture that is just part of it. And some things you might accept just because it's the norm and it's culture. But sometimes it might be good to reflect a bit on it. What deadlines are really necessary and which ones aren't? Because we're like a frog in a pan of water that you're boiling. The frog will not know that it's getting hot. The heat is increasing, and it will just sit there because you get used to it. So this is it. It's not. I'm not saying that the one or the other is good or bad, but we should be aware of where are we, in what kind of process are we embedded. These are some of the causes, and I think it's a summary of what we just already saw. This macho culture might also be relevant, like you have to be tough, you have to work, you have to be, don't complain. It's often related to these frontline workers, right? You have to be, yeah, don't complain, just it's part of life or part of work. So who are at risk? Would you often see that people who are maybe find it more difficult to deal with it or cope with it, that are people who are enthusiastic, a lot of motivation, when you're loyal to your colleagues, to your the mission of your organization, loyal to your let's say beneficiaries, the people that you're working or reporting on, and if you feel helpless or if you have a lot of need to help others as well. But often that's just all of us. So it's not something just that particular to a certain type of person, right? We all are at risk in a way. So if we get back to, let's say, the guidelines that talk a bit about this, what happens with this stress? It gets us hooked. So you might worry about the past or about the future, and these thoughts and feelings are a natural part of stress. And what we mean by hooked is that it snaps you, it traps you, right? You get caught by it, and with that, it might pull you away from the behavior that you maybe would like to conduct or to show. So what can happen if this stress hooks you, it pulls you away, and might result into the feelings of giving up, or you want to blame others, or you become harsh on yourself, right? I'm not doing it the right way. I'm not coping, but my colleague is. It's my fault. I'm responsible. So you make it on a personal level in a negative way. And yeah, when we worry about others, and what happens is that it changes your behavior. So you might get into fights or arguments, or you withdraw, you stay away from the people that you love, or you avoidance can be a good thing, right? If there's something bad and you want to avoid it, it's okay. But if you do it for a long time or too often, then you might be getting too isolated or start ignoring things that are important if you are a bit more balanced or if you're feeling a bit better. And when you're hooked, this pulls you away from our values. This is what you already mentioned, or what you already answered, right? These values that are important. And it's not just about professional or work. Work is just part of life. And sometimes we over-identify ourselves with the work that we're doing. But of course, you also have your personal values towards yourselves, towards others and the world. And actually, it's about the type of person you want to be. That you want to be protective or loving or committed, caring. And then the pace also, when you think about these values, you have to step back a little bit, no, to have these values blossom. And that's what happens when you're hooked. It pulls you away from it. Sorry. So what I'm just checking the time. That would be nice. So what I want to show you, I want to do with you actually together, is one of the exercises that's in the WHO Doing What Matters in Times of Stress guide. It's a thing that you can read, but it's also an exercise that you can listen to. There's an audio online. I will have it here. For me, this is a wonderful voice, so I can't say it in any better way than how it's recorded. It's about a minute and a bit. I just want to ask you to just listen to it attentively. Ignore maybe other things that are happening around your screen. Just take a breath and take a bit of time, and just listen, and you can join if you want. Just give it a try. I will start it. Here we go. Sorry.
Now we will do a short grounding exercise. We invite you to sit straight in silence, with your eyes open or closed, and notice which thoughts and feelings are present. Now slow down. Breathe. Push your feet down. Stretch your arms or straighten your back. Now notice the world around you. What can you see and hear and smell and touch? Engage with the world. Here you are, here and now. Stretch your body and notice that you can choose how to move. You are able to take action.
That's a real short exercise. Would love to hear how you experience this one, and maybe you can reply a bit in the chat.
Matthias, it was a little bit low, so if you have others like that, probably you need to turn it up to the max, and then because you're using the headphones, we can hear you moving around, so we could hear the.
Oh, so sorry. I was actually really doing the exercise, so I was moving my arms, and I felt I was calming down while my wife was asking for the kids. But okay, I will do that with the next one. If people want to answer a bit in the chat.
Did enjoy it though. In the chat, they're saying they enjoyed it, but it was a little low.
Oh, low volume. Sorry. I will spice it up a bit later on. Thank you at least for your reply. So yeah, I mentioned this already. When stressed, it's hard to engage in life. And this slowing down, stepping back is actually what we need. Because when we're doing things unfocused, they're often done poorly or without joy or satisfaction. We just like rushed in a way. So to engage in something, to give it full attention with body and senses, like in this exercise, it might focus your attention with your mind and with your brain. And These skills are, of course, it's not rocket science, and it's not something that will work for everyone, but these are the things that you might recognize, and I will get back to it later. There's also different varieties to it, of course. It's just an example, and with all these skills of taking care of ourselves, also like with a healthy diet or exercise, these are things that you have to practice, right? You have to get it into your system to take care of yourself in the way that fits you. And this is just an example. Yeah. So when we talk about wellness and coping, which of course is the main aim, like to be mentally, socially well, to be connected to the people that we love, to the things that we enjoy doing, it's important. I just wanted to, we have a poll on this one, right, again, Lisa? What are the main sources that you use to cope with stress? What are your positive coping skills or habits already? How are you already dealing with difficult times? Not just COVID. We have stress throughout our lives. Of course, now it's just more obvious and more, in our face. We can't deny that. Let me see for me as well.
And I think what may have made this even harder for some people is that depending on where you are, the things that you would normally do to relieve stress, you can't do because of COVID-19. You can't travel
Exactly.
with your family if they don't live where you are. You might not be able to go out and enjoy nature. It depends on where you are. So, I mean, COVID-19 has really, really made times difficult, much more difficult.
Yeah, then when we talk about restrictions, then you really feel how that turns out. Because if you're restricted in moving or meeting friends, that's maybe your main source of coping. So it's maybe you have nice skills, but there's limitations or boundaries to get to those. And at the same time, you might not tap into some resources of coping because we don't have them in the system, or we're not aware of them, or we don't like them so much. But so if the broader, the bigger our toolkit is, we have, and these are times that we need to be flexible and creative. Exactly, you're absolutely right.
So I'm going to close this one soon. We pretty much have one who's voted, so you can see the results. Great. Again, not really surprising to me that time with family and loved ones is big one.
Yep.
Followed by exercising and spirituality.
Mm-hmm.
Exercising is actually tied with nature.
Yeah. And this is also a culture thing, right? I mean, our geography. Where are you based? Are you living in a city or not? Is it easy accessible? But also, when I do these kinds of trainings, or I ask the question about spirituality or church, this is within the context of the Netherlands and maybe definitely the city areas. It's not a source. People don't use it, but they might need it, and they don't know how to get to that one. So great to see so many things. Okay, so if we talk about wellness, there's different elements to that in life, and it's a bit in the coping resources that you just saw, but we talk about physical wellness. Of course, your body needs to be healthy, or doesn't need to be, but it helps for your wellness if you are physically okay, if you're not sick, for one, and if you are capable in a way, in certain ways, and to take care of it's the most important instrument that we have. It's just a wonderful mechanics, basically, and to how we eat, that we sleep well, our sleeping routine, these are all important to it. Emotional, of course, there are issues in our life, but how we deal with these setbacks that affects our happiness or our wellness, relationships with friends, family, colleagues, neighbors, of course, extremely important. financial issues, of course, if poverty is a problem, or financial insecurity, that could be a really big stressor, and it might or might not affect your wellness. You can still be happy, of course, or be relatively okay, but it could be, on the one hand, a source of coping or feeling well. Environmental is the way how you connect with your, let's say, nature and environment, and the bigger system, the bigger picture that we're living in. Intellectual deals with how you feel challenged professionally, intellectually, learning new things, and often learning new things or having some process on an intellectual side, new jobs or new tasks or things that are that you learn from. This often increases people's wellness in a way. And spiritual, of course, is also relevant, and you already mentioned that as an important source. And one is not better than the other. Some people might focus more. I'm more focused on physical wellness, or other people say, for me, financial issues are really, really important. This is where I focus on. And the more colors that you rely on, or the more colors from this circle that you can tap into, the more resilient you are, the more adaptive you are to different kinds of setbacks. So with this, it could be a bit of a short question just to yourself. We don't have to do it in a poll, but take a note for yourself. Which of these factors, which of these colors can I use or address actually maybe a bit more or improve, or which one am I not using at all? Which one can I try? And how could you maybe do that practically, even in these limited COVID regulations times? Yeah, because then you tap into maybe a new unexplored element that could assist a bit. Just want to touch the topic a bit of stress and burnout. So what is let's say, a bit of the difference? And this is something that we can talk, you can have a full day or 2 or 3 days trainings on the science of burnout, how to deal with it. But I just want to give you a quick overview. Often you see with stress, it's talked about a physical activity, and this leads to a diminished energy. You're over-engaged, you react to your environment more, so your stress level is really, your adrenaline, cortisol, hormonal levels are up, and often that leads a bit more to feeling panic or anxiety, and is more of a physical toll. You get pains in your back, in your neck, headaches maybe. So that's a bit more on the stress side, let's say. The burnout is a bit of you're tapping out, you're zoning out, you're getting disengaged, your emotions got blunted, or you feel helpless, lack of control. So your motivation is reducing and leads to maybe isolation or a bit more of depression. So that's more of an emotional state, let's say, or the emotional side of it. Of course, if you have some of these signs, it doesn't mean you're burnout, right? But it just means, okay, I have to be aware. Maybe it's like a bit of a red flag, or orange flag. I mean, I'm too much in the red orange zone. Okay, I have to focus a bit more on the different colors in the wheel. I have to take care of myself a bit and step back a bit. So if we talk about this,
Matthias, can you be burnt out and still working? Like, are you still doing your daily stuff if you're burnt out?
Often a lot less, and often even the smallest things are taking your toll. So this is actually where you're when you can't deal or cope with the maybe even simple things in life, taking care of yourself and getting up, and so this is really so there's, of course, there are different levels to it, right? But if you're still working and things are relatively under control, you might have some signs of it, but I wouldn't say you have a full burnout in a way. The three things that are related to burnout are more the feeling of exhaustion, feeling, and this is the word that I'm struggling with, inefficacy, and cynicism. Sorry, inefficacy. Sorry for that. Just as a reminder in a way. So we talked about a bit of the different levels, right? So your personal level, society, but also in work. And I want to zoom in on that a little bit more because, and I think this is actually the most or an important one. So how does your organization help you to maintain a good mental health? How is your work from the board, from the directors, in policies? How are things embedded? Is there attention to it? Is it something you can talk about that you're not feeling okay? Or do you hear stories that when people are, let's say, calling in sick, they're not, and they're stressed, or there's issues, that it's better not to talk about that, or that they're being blamed for it? So what's a bit of the culture?
And I think the other, we hope that we can discuss what other means because we weren't able to leave it open. So the other, we see 6% there. We hope at some point you can tell us what that represents for you. Right now, with 45% of the votes in, it looks like the leading thing is no support at all. So this is we need to discuss. I'll give you a couple more minutes with you. But stigma may also play a part in this.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and so it's a culture thing. Like, how do we talk about these issues, that you're doing okay or not okay, and are you getting blamed for it? Does it come back in your annual evaluation? Yeah, but you were calling in sick 3 times and you were complaining, so you're not fit to the job. These things that have a supportive environment keeps you going a lot longer. And of course, this is a process. It doesn't change overnight, but this is what, let's say, the good practice. It would be nice if those things are present. Oh, I didn't fill it out. No support at all. Provide staff support services. Retains a counseling service. Encourages peer support. Okay.
I see Carlos says his organization has a gym, but he doesn't use it. To look at the wheel and realize you need to incorporate all of the ways you can reduce stress.
Yeah, and actually you want your boss to lead by example, because if it's okay to use the gym during working hours, even though it's for 20 minutes, then you also don't feel any limitations to use it. So you can tap into that facility. I mean, if everybody looking at you like, what are you doing? Is you're wasting your time, then you feel very demotivated and also structurally held back. So, okay, these are answered. So this is just about the Antares Foundation. They wrote wonderful guidelines on good practice in the workplace. And this is a bit for me to do towards you guys, but also for you to do within your workplace to promote for a holistic stress management approach. And this means it has to be embedded, or it could be ideally embedded within policy. There can be rules and systems in place. You want maybe monitoring on people's well-being, personally, professionally, how they're doing, whether there's and to have support, ongoing support available, and especially in critical incidents, right? If there's something urgent, if you're witnessing a suicide or just after a really difficult event and you're at the crime scene, it might be nice that there's a bit of support in that. So some specific events can trigger that, and there's a higher need for some support. So it's at every level from management to individual. So it's not an individual solution to it. So these are the things that you're, as I saw, are really already doing on the practical side. Keep the wheel balanced and in motion. Try to see whether you can tap into all the different colors and elements of this wellness wheel. Some things: remain socially connected, maintain a healthy lifestyle. These are the things that you already mentioned, right? Create time and space for yourself. This is the topic of self-care. And it's just not just time that you're off work, but also space. And this means, for example, to be able to say no, or that you need an hour more for this deadline to have and this is hard, because this is a bit about assertiveness and courage, and that is easier if the climate is supportive or understanding in that. So, but this, yeah, where do you start, right? You have to start with yourself, but you want others to follow and to discuss it. So it's a team. You could use this presentation maybe in your team meeting, take a bit of time and discuss it. And it's not set in stone, right? It's something that is a lively topic and that you have to discuss and decide on altogether. So I think to get back, act on your values, try to reach them, to make them alive, stay connected to your values is also really important. And don't, this is the thing, life is sometimes a bit of too much, right? Or there's too many elements. That's just a bit of an overburden. Doesn't mean you're weak. It doesn't mean that anything bad about you, but ask for help. And it doesn't have to be a professional. Start with your friends and colleagues and boss first, but professionals or maybe an elderly or someone in your neighborhood. Just, we're in this all together, and you can't live your life on your own. So we need others. So don't hesitate for that. I would suggest. On the practical tips, I just highlighted the two, like the orange and the blue, the emotional one and spiritual one, because you can maybe say that these 5 tools in the Doing What Matters in Times of Stress guide are focused on these 2 elements. The grounding is being connected. Unhooking is how do you get released from this hook, let's say, how to get back to your values, make room for negative feelings or thoughts that are also part of life. You cannot solve everything. We also have to accept and yeah, endure it in a way, and be kind to yourself. So these are the 5 exercises that are in the tool, and I would recommend to have a look at those and maybe try. As I mentioned, of course, new skills require practice, and the more we practice, the better we get at it. I'm just looking at the time, Lisa.
I think we can probably just do one. If we could, then that would be great.
I like that. I'm happy. So maybe I will do the making room. I will not do it completely, but just to give you a bit of a start with it. It takes about 2.5 minutes. You can just listen to it. I'll start, and maybe after 30 seconds, I will check with Lisa, or 20 seconds, if the sound is okay. Sorry. No. Get it here. Where are you? Up.
Making room for our difficult thoughts and feelings instead of fighting with them requires 3 simple steps: noticing, naming, and making room. You already know the first 2 steps: noticing and naming.
Is it working?
I can hear it. No one has said they can't hear, so we can continue.
Okay. Of course, he's mentioning the 2 exercises that are before, right? So we just get into exercise 3. I will continue.
These are your unhooking skills. For the 3rd step, making room, it is useful to think about the sky and the weather. No matter how bad the weather, the largest of storms, the most powerful of winds, freezing cold or intense heat, the sky has room for it, and the sky never gets hurt by it. And sooner or later, the weather always changes. Our thoughts and feelings are like the weather, continually changing from moment to moment. and we can learn to be like the sky and make room for even the worst weather without being hurt by it.
Shall I pause in there?
Yeah, that's true.
I really, really like this metaphor.
Yes. I like it too. I've heard some people talk about you don't have you should be like a fish in the sea. A fish, you still have to add salt to a fish. So even though a fish is in the sea, it doesn't take in the salt around it. That might be slightly, you don't absorb everything. Your style simile is a bit different in that things can change. It will continue to move on, so it doesn't stay that way. A couple of people are saying they couldn't hear it well enough. What we will do is we will share these materials with you so that you can
Wonderful.
this in your quiet time, if you have any quiet time. So we will share that. I see your comment, Tekla.
Okay, sorry for that. Of course, this was a bit of a challenge whether it would work or not. Luckily, these exercises are easily accessible. You can read them and listen to them. So if you are curious, and I hope you are, we'll send you how to get there. We might do this a little later. I just want to show you how the guide looks like. It's quite easy. We will send the link, I'm sure, later. Self-care for journalists is just getting more and more of a topic. And these are the Antares Foundation guidelines. So this is something that within the work, at least you know where the good practices are originating from. So keep in mind, you're not alone in these times. These are unprecedented times, and practice regular self-care and stress management so that you can stay prepared and healthy as far as possible. Be kind to yourself. And there's a nice quote: change what can't be changed, accept the pain that cannot be changed, and live by your values. With that, I would like to thank you, and if there's any question, we might get into that a bit later. Thank you for your time. I hope you had a bit of an overview and the different elements of it. And it was really a pleasure. I'm really unfortunate that we can't meet in person. I can't really see you, but I wish you all the best. Take care and stay safe. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Matthias. I will spare like 5 minutes. If there are any questions, please feel free to raise your hand. I can allow you to talk, or you can type it. If you don't want to talk, you can also type it in the Q&A or in the chat. Was this useful to you? I mean, those exercises, there was a time when I used to have to do them at night because my stress, the way how I deal with things is well, that's not how I deal with it. My brain doesn't shut down. So I would lay down at night and I'd be going over and over and over and everything I need to do and what I didn't get done. So I would use those grounding exercises before I go to sleep because it would settle my head, my thoughts, so I could relax a bit. Carlos, that is not a question that I think we're going to try to address at this time. There are no snacks in this virtual training. Are there any questions? Please raise your hand and I can allow you to talk. Or a couple of people have already said that they would like access to the resources. I did drop the link in the chat, and we will be sending you the PowerPoint, and I will ask Matthias to also make sure he leaves the links where they can also listen to the exercises as part of the PowerPoint if possible.
Yes, I will do that right away. When I stop sharing my screen, I will get it into the chat.
Okay, I have a hand up from Marilyn Zonico. I have allowed you to talk. You can unmute and please go ahead.
Good afternoon.
Hello, we can hear you.
Me?
Hello.
Yes. Thank you very much, particularly for this opportunity, and especially Dr. Hogstad for your presentation. The reason I wanted to intervene is to ask if there is any possibility that the agencies which have enabled us to participate, such as our Ministry of Health in the Bahamas, whether there can be maybe putting together some of the key exercises that could be sent via social media, WhatsApp or something like that, or that could be part of PSAs on public radio, In other words, if these resources like the grounding, particularly the exercises that we were introduced to, if they could be sort of shared more widely within our organizations as well as with the public as PSAs, as I said. Thank you most kindly.
Thank you, Ms. Sonico. Thank you. I believe they have been shared before, but as Dr. Prieto said, we do want to actually try to adapt this guide for the Caribbean. Dr. Prieto, I don't know if you wanted to say anything about this, but I'm sure she's very happy to hear that you would like to use some of these resources, and there are resources are available.
Absolutely. No, thank you, Lisa, for giving me the floor, and thank you for that comment. And we are, as Lisa mentioned, adapting. I'm sorry, I was distracted with the little hand that popped up while I was doing my opening. And I had meant to say that we are adapting the WHO doing what matters in times of stress, which is the main content that Matthias used for his presentation to the Caribbean. Actually, some of the illustrations that you saw in his slides come from this guide that we are finalizing now. We are making it a little bit more condensed, and we are using illustrations that are more, closer to the Caribbean. We're still trying to make them as generic as possible, acknowledging the diversity of the region. But the main goal with this adaptation is to make the guide a little bit more user-friendly and condensed. And as part of our work with CDB, we are looking at developing a web-based app so that we can make these materials and these tools more easily accessible to the general public. But I take your comment and recommendation and interest. I think this kind of engagement is really great for us to get feedback and to hear about ways in which you think we can disseminate further and more efficiently. So thank you very much for that comment. And I think as we move forward with this, final piece that we're planning with CDB with regards to the guide, we'll very much remember and take note of your comment. Thank you. Over.
Thank you, Elisa. I also see a couple of people said they were happy to be a part of the session, and it was good to be in the polls to see that you're not the only one that feels this way. You're not the only one where there may not be any support in the office to talk about this. So these are things at a policy level we definitely need to do some work on. Are there any other questions? I only see the hand that was raised before. Any other questions? If not, I'm going to hand it over to Dawn, and then also welcome Dr. Cayetano, who has been with us on this journey as well. You still have a little more time. If there's a question you want to ask, you can pop it in the chat. But I'm going to hand over now to Dawn Paris. As you heard, she is a consultant working with us on the PAHO CDB CBU Awards, celebrating responsible coverage of mental health and psychosocial support during COVID-19. Dawn, over to you.
Thank you, Lisa. Good afternoon to the rest of the panel and the participants, many of whom may have to rush off soon. Don't go just yet. I'm hoping you've already received communication via email about the call for submissions to the PAHO CDB CBU Awards, celebrating responsible coverage of mental health and psychosocial support during COVID-19. It's a mouthful, but in essence, it's an initiative for you who've participated in the training series to demonstrate that you've used the knowledge and guidance you gained in those sessions in your reporting responsibly during this pandemic. Now, you've explored the epidemiological and ethical concepts for reporting during the pandemic, including mental health. You've looked at the role of journalists in addressing stigma in the context of COVID-19 and mental health, and domestic violence in the context of the pandemic. And I'm sure you've been able to use some of that, if not all, in your reporting since those sessions from June to November last year. And there's definitely been no shortage of material when it comes to COVID-19 because it has dominated the news cycle for the better part of a year. And we really want to encourage you to look at the news stories you've produced and submit your best work. A reminder though that the deadline for entries has been extended to January 22nd. So it means you still have 8 more days to get those entries in. So briefly, let me go through some information about the award criteria and eligibility. First of all, once you register for the training sessions and review the content shared, you are eligible to submit entries. We're looking for entries that cover one or a combination of the topics you explored in the series. And I would have mentioned some of those earlier: the epidemiological and ethical concepts of reporting during the pandemic, the role of journalists in addressing stigma, and domestic violence within the COVID-19 context. Okay, so there are 3 award categories: print, television, and radio. And let me explain those categories. Print is not just traditional hard copy newspapers or magazines. We're also looking for online newspaper and magazine submissions. As for TV and radio, whether your story goes out on free-to-air or subscription TV services or online platforms, you're eligible to submit entries. And the most outstanding entry in each of those categories will win $500 US. And of course, you'll get a certificate of recognition as well. So in total, there are 3 awards: 1 for TV, 1 for print, and 1 for radio. And as I think I mentioned before, all entries must have been published for the first time between June 18th, 2020 and January 14th, 2021, which is today. And they must have been published or broadcast by a recognized registered media organization. Now, there have been 1 or 2 queries about language, and I think I want to make a clarification here. The entries must be submitted in English or be accompanied by an English translation. There are more details contained in the rules which would have been circulated, but if you've not received those rules or the entry form, let us know. We'll dispatch that to you soonest, and you can send queries to admin@caribbroadcastunion.org, and I'll put that email address in the chat so you have it for easy reference. So again, looking forward to seeing your entries because we know you've done some great work and we really want to reward you for it.
Thank you so much, Dawn. She will put, because I was trying to type it into the chat, but you can put it in the chat in case you wanted to send us a question or you're ready to send a submission in as well. I'm going to hand now to Dr. Cayetano, Claudina Cayetano. She has been with us quite a bit as well through this journey. She woke up early with me this morning to talk about this for a station here in Barbados. We want to welcome Dr. Claudina Cayetano, Advisor for Mental Health at the Pan American Health Organization, to bring conclusions.
Thank you very much, colleagues. Thank you very much, Ms. Bailey, Dr. Prieto, Mrs. Gideon, and Ms. Dan Paris. This was so fantastic. And of course, to our facilitator, Mathis, this was fabulous to have the opportunity for you to walk us through within an hour of this, what it matters about mental, about, managing our stress level. I want to say that we all agree that mental health matters. COVID is not a walk in the park. COVID is as much as it is physical, it is mental. So reporting on COVID can also be very draining. So, and it is, when I saw the poll, in terms of what your organization is doing for you, like 42% saying no support. And 12% say regular talks about mental health, which means that this is a really important issue. And I'm hoping that if we were to do this series again, and I know when we do the training, that this will be, rather than 42%, we'll drop it then more to have more organization paying attention to mental health. There's not much time. I think the lecture and the training has been fantastic. You will get the recording. I just want to thank you and encourage you to continue paying attention to mental health. And please send the submissions, because that's what it means that you do reporting on the importance of mental health. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Dr. Cayetano. Thank you so much for being a part of the session today. I know you love to listen to the journalists and what they have to say, and I know you want to help us to change the policy, to make things a little bit easier for this target group as well. So we've come to the end of our hour, went over by 10 minutes, not too bad, I think. Thank you so much to Matthias Hogstad, Mental Health International Consultant here with PAHO WHO. Thank you, of course, to Dawn Paris, working hard for us on bringing in those entries. We hope that you will send in your entries and we can share some of your work and maybe have further discussions on what more we can do to help you in this area. Thank you to Dr. Claudina Cayetano. Ms. Kimberly Gittins from the Caribbean Development Bank, and of course, Dr. Elisa Prieto, and our support who makes sure that everything is working fine on the back end, Sharon, of course, Calendar, who makes sure that the Zoom system is up and running and everything is running smoothly for us. So thank you so much for joining us. Send your entries in, and please remember to stay safe. Have a wonderful day. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you.